is on how to formulate the right questions. Um, why is this important? I earlier on stated that the nature of questions that you actually ask depict whether you are a very thoughtful person or you are not. So that means that the way you ask questions is actually very important. So how do you formulate right questions in the context of evidence-based practice, but also in the context of research? Because these are actually interrelated. If you ask the right questions, then you're going to do the right kind of research. Okay, so let's basically start. Building on the inquiry culture or the culture of inquiry, where you keep asking yourself questions and you're not satisfied by the things that you always say, you want to see that there is evidence for the things that people are doing or that you are doing, you will come up with questions. Now, these questions, they help in formulating what we term as research questions. Okay, you can have random questions in the word or in the clinical area, but then when you think about these questions, you can refine them into what you term as a research question. So if you have very good research questions, you are likely, it is likely that you will get the right evidence. If you don't have the right question, it's likely that you will not get the right evidence. Okay, but these questions generally come from practical experiences that you have in the world. Okay, your experiences in the world will inform the nature of questions that you can have. And then secondly, if you have very good research questions, you also, I've already talked about it, you all get the right evidence or the right research articles, and then you can be able to even evaluate them properly, what we term as critical appraisal. And you also be able to identify the gaps in the literature. Okay, again, it's like we can look at if you have the right question, it means that you have the right microscope. And that means that you can be able to see what other people are not seeing. So that is the last point, that it makes you get interest in areas where people have not really paid a lot of attention to. Okay, so what are the characteristics of a good research question? You should state what the problem is, define it properly, and set the boundaries. And then the last point is that it should provide evidence for. It should provide the right direction for how you're going to look for the evidence. If you have the right question, you will know the exact problem, you know the people who are involved in that, who is affected by the problem, and you know the nature, you even have an idea on the nature of research that you need to do, or even on the nature of the journals that you're going to investigate this problem, where you're going to do research, which journals can you conduct your research. So the main focus of this second discussion is what we call the PICOT. Here we are ending at O, but we can put a T instead of PICO for it to be the PICOT framework. Okay, so you can find literature in different resources where they end at O, but you can also get literature where we end at T. So in this discussion, we are focusing on PICOT. So what is PICOT? PICOT is a framework that you can use to structure a clinical question. In this definition, you have the word clinical question, but you can replace it with the anything. It can be applicable in healthcare industry in general, or public health, or even reproductive health, whatever situation that you're talking about. So the PICOT is a framework for structuring a research question um, for purposes of evidence-based practice. Okay, so you see a problem in the world and you're like, is what we are doing the right thing? That can be the question in your mind. It's a rough, poor question. It's a rough, poor question, but you can modify it into the PICOT framework. So what is the PICOT framework? What does it stand for? Each of these letters, P, I, C, O, and T, they stand for a word. So P can stand for a patient, population, or basically a health problem. And that is the first indicator that the PICOT framework is not only applied in clinical areas, it's also applied in the public health arena. Okay? In the clinical area, we're talking about patients. Okay? In the public health arena, we are talking about populations or even a health problem. The health problem can be smoking, drinking alcohol, whatever it is, vaccination, people who are having, all groups of people. We can have patients who are suffering this condition. That's the P. And then the intervention, what is being done. And then comparison, comparing what is being done with another intervention. What could happen? That is the outcome. What could happen is the outcome. And then a T within a particular time frame. So let's look at an example here. That in patients with pressure ulcers, does the use of a specialized wound dressing compared to a standard wound dressing reduce the healing time over a period of 4 weeks? That is a PICOT question. And if you analyze this question, you have the patient, you have the interventions, you have the control, you have the outcome, and you have the time frame. So let's break this down. The patient, the P here is the patients who have a particular condition. In this case, we're talking about patients with pressure ulcers. And then the intervention is about the dressing. And that dressing is when we are using specialized wound dressing. And then we are comparing it with another similar kind of intervention, which is the usual, the word standard here is the usual wound dressing. And then what will happen if we are using a specialized wound dressing? How will it influence the healing time? That's the outcome. And then that outcome is in the time frame of about 4 weeks. So you say that this question has has all the parts of the PICOT framework: the P, the I, the C, the O, and the T. It is possible that you can have a question that lacks one or two of the letters that we are having here. Okay, so it is possible that we can have a question that does not have an intervention. If you don't have an intervention, then it's also likely that you are not going to have a time frame. These are basically interrelated. So the whole thing is that you can have a PICOT question that lacks some of the elements. Okay, let me give you an example. My question is, I want to understand the maternal health services that are provided in Juba prison. The maternal health care services that are provided in Juba prison. What PICOT question can you formulate from that? That's the question. I want to understand the maternal health care services that are being provided in Juba prison? That's my question. Can we convert that question into a PICOT question? All of you who have research topics that have been approved, you can think about them using the PICOT framework. And I will tell you why that it is very important for you to think about the topics that you already have in terms of the PICOT framework. You can also use different AI tools to help you. You put in your topic and then say, structure this according to the PICOT framework. And it will break down the things for you, and then you evaluate and see if what they have given you is actually the right thing or not. But that is also very important. You don't take AI without questioning. So again, for emphasis, the PICOT question is actually very important in research because it helps you to formulate the right research questions, and therefore you can identify the target population, you can identify what you need to investigate, the comparison group, the desired outcomes, and then the time frames. It basically, you see, it is better to look at something in small bits. So the PICOT framework basically breaks the research question into small bits, and it allows you to know what you need to look for. Okay, it is very easy for you to formulate research objectives. It makes you very easy to understand the structure of the literature review. Okay, the literature review that you will have to do. For example, for that maternal healthcare services in Juba prison, we'll look at in my literature review, I'll look at maternal healthcare services in prison settings. Okay, so that's what I will look at. How are they organized? How are they provided? What are the challenges? So I will know that I'm specifically dealing with the prisoners strictly. I will know that I'm dealing strictly with maternal healthcare services. So I know what I'm looking at. So it helps me through the research process, understanding the research problem, understanding the literature review, the methodology, and how you even collect data. So it helps you through the entire process of research. So that's the PICOT framework, and it's very important for the reasons that I have always given.